Greetings, mind crafters, and welcome to another exciting discussion here today on this, it's a lovely rainy day, and I'm down here in my Zen den, which our youngest daughter waved her sort of artistic decor wand and made it beautiful. Our daughter Delaney, she's currently out in Denver, and I'm just down here because change of atmosphere since it's raining, so thanks Pudgy, that's her nickname. All right, so my name is Kimberly Quinn, and I'm so pumped to have this discussion from my Zen den. And what I'd like to talk about is letting go of shame. I did make myself some notes just like I did in the previous episode. I don't do that that often. Honestly, I'm not that planned. But sometimes, because it just rolls out of me, sometimes there's a time and a season for everything, right? Sometimes it's good to stay on that track, which is not my nature. I'm a web thinker, not linear at all, in case you haven't noticed. So today I'm going to be a little bit linear, leaving room, of course, to go in different directions. So letting go of shame. So first, I think it's super important to make sure we're all on the same page. So it's important to realize the difference between shame and guilt. So guilt says, I made a mistake, like we talked about a few days ago. I made a mistake. Shame says, I am the mistake. Highly toxic. There is no more... I cannot think of a more toxic emotion that a human being can experience than shame, because that I am the mistake message says that we're flawed or defective in some way, that we're not enough, that we're damaged goods. So we're all born, our spirits are perfect, and we go through stuff because we're meant to go through stuff to grow, and that does not mean in any way that we are flawed, defective, damaged, broken. No. Okay, so those feelings are excruciating, as I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, know. So that's the difference. And so the question is, how can we look back? And I got to give a shout out again to Wayne Dyer. I've been listening to him lately, and I listen to lots of people. I kind of have like a main friends group with that. As you know, Wayne Dyer and Oprah, my two top ones. Abraham Hicks, Aaron Doughty, I didn't mention him last time. I haven't listened to him in a while. Joe Dispenza, there's all kinds of good ones. And then people send me things from people I have never even heard of, and I listen to those, and that's cool too. But Wayne Dyer, I kind of revisit. Also, I love his voice. It's like a massage. But so he talks about how can we look back on our life, all the stuff that happened, the things, right, that happened, and, that we've been conditioned to perceive as failures, quote unquote mistakes, and how can we look back at those and then look through more of a lens of acceptance and love and kindness, and really truly let go of these things, no matter how badly they were, right? Even look through this rosy lens of, Wayne says, how about even looking at our life as full of magnificence, as us as magnificent, despite all of those quote-unquote mistakes or failures, because, and Wayne's talked about this a lot, that in his opinion, and I agree with him, there really is no such thing as failure if you think about it, right? Because we're all moving around on this wonderful planet of ours. We're moving around doing behaviors, actions, right, that then lead to a result. And so really, we're all doing that. Picture us like all bumper cars. We're all like at the fair, bumper cars. We're all just bumper cars on the planet, like bumping into stuff and figuring it out and going this way instead of that way, because bumper cars are really a great metaphor for what we're talking about, because the minute we get bumped, we head that way, right? And we also can sometimes get, if you've ever been jammed in a corner, you have to wait for somebody to move till you can get out, right? And so life is full of bumper car dynamics, right? And so to really realize that it's all just pointing us in a direction, and some directions were more enjoyable than other directions. Some directions were full of growth than other directions. And in the end, it's all our lives, and it's all meant to unfold exactly the way it's meant to unfold. So also, I think Wayne touched on this a little bit, but I had my own experience anyway. When I had the good fortune of attending some AA anniversaries when I was a teenager, young 12-ish, 13, 14, somewhere in that range, I went along with a family member who was in recovery, and I think I used to love, I only went to the anniversaries. I think if you're not part of the program, I don't think you're allowed to go unless it's the anniversaries, or maybe an open meeting or something like that. But plus, part of me was shallow Hal, because we didn't have a lot of sugar growing up, like almost none, like Halloween and Christmas, Easter, So the cakes were like these high tests, they had like radioactive frosting, and my sister and I would battle over the flour that was on the corner and all that. Just thought I'd throw that in there. But I also remember I was old enough to get what they were saying. So these incredibly authentic people, courageous, authentic people get up there and say, celebrating their anniversary, and they would also choose speakers who would share their stories just from their heart of hearts with the excruciating experiences that they had and how they came out on top. These, as hard as they were for them to say and for us to hear, it was so positive. I can't even explain to you how positive it was, even with all the loss and the agony, because in the end, they came out, the people who were speaking were sober now, and their lives were back on track, and in the process of being back on track. And they talked about delight at the end and how it becomes great. It's a tough sell when you're in it, but it becomes great. And they were grateful. How many times I hear, I'm grateful that I lost that job. I'm grateful my partner, gave me an ultimatum with, figure it out. We have kids and we'll support you through the whole thing, but you need to go here for a few months, iron it out, and get you whatever it was. I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that my parents put a stop to my whatever. I actually remember that. And also, let's say, really hard life experiences wound up, okay. I know with myself that whenever I've been elevated to a new level, spiritually, emotionally, right? It was usually like right after, something happened, something like some big adversarial something, the things, right? And then you go through it, and there's a whole process, and it's ugly, and you're surviving it, and then you kind of start to come out. You feel that you're starting to come out. You're not good yet, but you're starting to come out. And then all of a sudden you look back, you're like, wow, I'm now here because of all that. And this is because being the best version of yourself, too, he says this, being the best high vibe version of yourself is not about, being better than other people and comparing, right? It's your own personal best, like we say in track. And when I was talking about the 12-step program just a minute ago, they were all about their own personal best. It wasn't in comparison to others. Comparison to others just adds to the pain. Like, let's say it is a recovery situation, and maybe you're considered to be the black sheep in the family, and you compare yourself to your siblings who appear successful, and maybe you're even the oldest, and they're the youngest, and that adds even more shame, right? So those stories in AA and the story I'm telling you now are about to do your best to not do that, because it's about showing up. My mastermind friends are big on talking about showing up better today than you did yesterday. And when you look back, like all of those situations were necessary to be where you are today. I think about that with my own family situation, growing up in a very addicted family with a lot of mental illness. And it was, I'm a fabulous 58. It was back in a time when people didn't talk about stuff outside the house. So like today you would get taken from the home probably pretty quickly. Back then it was all hush hush, and it was just, everybody handled their own situation. And not that being taken out of the home is necessarily better. It depends on the situation you go to, right? But it was just lots of turbulence, some violence. We were basking in shame, and there is no blame. I'm so past it. The only reason I shared, I've said this in different episodes, I share it because people share with me along my route to getting here. And thank goodness that they were vulnerable with what their family looked like and how they felt and how they had to detach from it and leave and separate from it. And, all the vast different experiences. And I'm so grateful now sitting here at 58 years old that people shared with me. So I'm sharing with you because all of that, I don't want to relive it for sure. Though would I trade any of it? No, I wouldn't trade any of it. The manic ride to the Bronx my mother took me on, telling me she wished it would have been so much easier if I weren't born. That's my most severe example. I think there's a lot of them. That was excruciating at the time, but it all has rolled into who I am today. And I'm in such a better, higher place that I can now, I don't mean higher better than anyone, just to be clear, I think you get that, but authentically speaking, I'm now in a place to help other people just like the people before me helped me. So it's just kind of like a dominoes, it's just kind of like a thread. And so I wouldn't change any of it. In fact, I'm grateful. Again, wouldn't want to relive it. I'm grateful for all the tremendous growth and all the awesome people that are currently in my life, which largely came out of a lot of that stuff. And so that is kind of the whole point here. And then, okay, hold on one second, because I already said that. I know for myself, each and every experience I had, I wouldn't change it. And so then I talk about, it's similar to what I just said, that each of those things was meant to be. Living out of my car for a bit, all meant to be. At the time, hard, right? All meant to be. Just and that I absolutely love who I am now. I love being in my skin. I'm comfortable in my skin. I like who I am now. And I just wanted to say that with the utmost of humility, because it's coming from a place of authenticity. Certainly when you go through all that stuff, if you like The Velveteen Rabbit, if you've ever read the children's book, The Velveteen Rabbit, there is no room for ego left. Once The Velveteen Rabbit, I won't go through the whole story, just tell you a little bit. Basically, the Velveteen Rabbit was a stuffed bunny that was given to a child with, I think, scarlet fever. It's a really old book, like very super retro. And the bunny got all of it and ended up with all of its fur being rubbed off. The bunny became very real. There's a whole story to it. But through life, right? Because I think that the child, had to get rid of it because anything that they touched had to go and all that. And the point of the whole thing is that the Velveteen Rabbit had fur rubbed off. So I remember thinking, I look back about the wonderful people in AA, they were all velveteen rabbits and had their fur rubbed off from the world. So basically, all that's left is the authentic self. There's no more room for ego. Ego has been destroyed. Hallelujah. Ego has been destroyed. And so when I say that about, loving who I am and liking who I am and having all this fun, helping, being a vehicle for other people to get, to help them along their journey, is coming from a place of authenticity, of being a Velveteen Rabbit I've had lots of fur rubbed off, and it's a much different place than coming from a place of arrogance, which is ego. I don't have any desire in the world to go down that road, just to be clear. Okay, so then weighing arrogance is looking back. When we look back, we really need to work on our dialogue and talking ourselves out of this conversation about the failure thing that we talked about, because we really didn't fail at anything. We didn't fail at anything. We were doing what we needed to do at the time in order to get here, as painful as that may have been. And we also can beat ourselves up because we can think of, like, my now 58-year-old self would have said things differently to my 15-year-old self did, or my 23-year-old self did, or my 33-year-old self did, or my 43. Of course we would have. We got more wisdom now because if we leapfrog over all the things, right? But to not do that to ourselves, because your 22-year-old self, your 10-year-old self did the best he or they could do. And just to wrap around yourself with love and compassion. This is how we let go of that horrible, toxic emotion of shame that is attached to shameful memories. Need to throw this in there, because whenever we retrieve a memory, it can be you want a trophy and it's attached to excitement. Well, then you're going to feel the excitement again from being 8 or in high school or college or whatever. When we bring forth those shameful memories, the shameful feeling is attached to those memories. We're going to bring that turpentine right back into now, which is like battery acid, corroding our life minutes now, corroding our experiences now, and that horrible negative emotion. We know that negative emotion leads to negative experience. So why would we bring poison from the past into the now, corrupting our now minutes, which will then corrupt future minutes? We just don't want to do that. So it's super important to realize we did not fail. You did not fail. Tell yourself, I did not fail. Let's do the air quotes with mistakes, okay? The mistakes were lessons. Life throws us quizzes, hammers us until we finally pass. We keep getting the quizzes. Let's just say we're a 10 question quiz. You might have gotten 9 of them. You got an A-, great, okay? But you didn't get 10. So, and we're not talking about perfection. This is spiritual. So spiritual kind of, that's like an oxymoron, right? So it means that the universe, God, source, whoever wants you to get the whole lesson. So here comes one last little lesson to pull that splinter out of your foot. That's about, maybe it's self-love as your lesson, or self-acceptance or confidence as your lesson, or self-reliance as your lesson. One last little splinter, and then you've passed the test, right? The final exam. So that keeps happening until we get it. So that's why it's important to forgive yourself for all those quizzes along the way and not passing them because they're just part of it. And again, I know whenever I've had a spiritual growth spurt, that those things happen. Okay, so now, in order to get to the higher vibe, higher version of yourself, letting go of this shame is essential, because again, it's like battery acid. It's in a way, it seems worse than a roadblock, because a roadblock seems heavy and big and like a brick wall, but the battery acid thing makes me almost think of, like, I don't want to say the big C, the terminal thing we don't want to bring into this, give energy to, like how because shame like spreads like a disease. I mean, it just spreads. It's roadblocks are bad too, can be bad, unless they're pointing us in a good direction, then not so much, right? But the battery acid spreading thing, shame is different. It's terrible. It's the spiritual and emotional equivalent of drinking turpentine for breakfast instead of orange juice. So you want to get on this, now, and set the bar, do your best. That is so super important. It's kind of like a mantra of mine. Because whatever's that pattern of thinking that's been going on with you for 10 or 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years, you don't want to have these expectations of, okay, I watched this video now, I've read stuff. John Bradshaw has done some great work on shame. He's an oldie but a goodie. And Brene Brown, current, she's done tons of good work with shame. And you say, now that I've read this stuff and I've watched this stuff, and just expecting yourself to like wave on and be 100%, no, it's a process. And it's good that it's a process, because we savor processes. And when we savor, celebrating those breadcrumbs of moving forward and accomplishment means it's more meaningful, it's going to be longer lasting, and you are going to land up here in your high-flying frisbee with a long-lasting, forever level of much higher spirituality, happiness, life satisfaction, joy, all of it. Just all the authenticity. Just bask in it. Okay, so... Alright, okay, so love every moment. Okay, so what we're talking about is loving every moment of your life, even with the bumpy past, the speed bumps. And my last thing is, I said this before, but I want to say it again, with the forgiveness thing, because some people say, oh, well, I did this, I did that, this was done to me, and, so the whole forgiveness thing, Claudia Black, I said a couple of videos ago, I cannot say enough about her definition of forgiveness, because sometimes people get stuck because they think that forgiveness means forgetting. To forgive is to forget. We hear that a lot, right? You can't just patch up a relationship always. Sometimes a person is dead, so that isn't going to work. Somebody molested somebody at 5 years old, it's not even healthy for you to be in a relationship with them. So there are times that just doesn't work, right? And they do not get a pass for it. They don't get a pass for these severe things. Sometimes you can patch up and make amends. And that depends on whether it's good for the other person, right? Because that's one of the steps in the program. Because we don't want to make amends based on to make us feel better. We want to make sure it's authentic, and maybe if it's not good for the other person, to just forgive ourselves and move forward. Okay, so here's we go. Claudia Black, I'm going to listen attentively. This is awesome. And it's coming from Claudia Black, adult children of alcoholics pioneer from the 80s, ACOA pioneer from the 80s. Claudia Black said, forgiving has nothing to do with forgetting. It has everything to do with remembering and choosing to move forward. So forgive yourself on this day. Okay, waiting isn't good, because it's not like the heavens part and the forgiveness fairy just drops on you and says, forgive yourself, Kim, and splatters, forgiveness pixie dust all over you. And then that's not how it happens. You got to decide it. You got to choose it. You can wait your whole life waiting to forgive somebody. Whether they're dead, whether they're in prison, whether whatever. We don't need apologies. We don't need anything. Why? Because we are in our frame and the control is in here. We don't need anything from that person. They don't get a pass. It's just we have chosen not to hold grudges and resentments are just heavy. We are choosing to not let them take anything from us any longer. No more energy, time, space, life, minutes. We are choosing to move forward. So forgiveness has nothing to do with forgetting. It has everything to do with remembering and choosing to move forward. Forgive yourself today. Don't waste one more life minute, not one more life second, thinking about things that are water under the bridge, so that you can fulfill your authentic destiny with your velveteen rabbit self and be the best you can possibly be. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the Zen Den in Northern Vermont. Have a mindful day.